The envelope was pristine, stamped with the embossed logo of the Silver Oaks Homeowners Association. I tore it open with my thumb, already bristling at the sight of Margaret Whitmore's looping signature at the bottom. Dear resident, per HOA, Covenant Section 12.7, all homeowners must maintain continuous water service to their properties, shutting off water for any reason, including repairs, without prior approval from the HOA board is a violation. Failure to comply may result in fines or legal action. I exhaled sharply, crumpling the paper in my fist. The leak under my kitchen sink had been worsening for days, warping the cabinet floor, and the plumber had finally arrived. Only way to fix it is to shut off the main valve, he said, wiping his hands on his jeans. Just for an hour, tops. I nodded. Do what you need to do. I didn't think twice. It was my house, my pipes. Margaret Whitmore disagreed. She materialized on my doorstep within minutes, as if summoned by the mere thought of non-compliance. A wiry woman in her late 50s, she wore her authority like a second skin, sharp-eyed, lips perpetually pursed, clipboard clutched to her chest like a shield. Mr. Carter, she said, voice dripping with faux civility. I noticed your water was shut off. I forced a tight smile. Temporary repair. It'll be back on soon. Her nostrils flared. You didn't file a request? For a plumber. For any alteration to utility service. She tapped her clipboard. It's in the bylaws. I stared at her. So, if my pipe bursts at midnight, I'm supposed to wait for your permission before stopping the flood. You're being dramatic. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Submit the proper forms next time. I shut the door before I said something I'd regret, but Margaret wasn't done. 20 minutes later, red and blue lights strobed through my front window. A police cruiser idled at the curb, and my stomach dropped. The officer, a weary-looking man in his 40s, stood on my porch with Margaret hovering behind him like a specter. Sir, he said, we got a call about unauthorized utility tampering. I gaped. I turned off my own water to fix a leak. Margaret stepped forward. It's a clear violation of community standards, officer. We take these rules very seriously. The cop's jaw tightened. He'd clearly dealt with HOA nonsense before. Ma'am, this isn't a criminal matter. Then I'll escalate it, she snapped. Fines, legal action. The officer shot me a look that said, good luck with this one. Before leaving, Margaret lingered, her voice low and venomous. This isn't over, Mr. Carter. The threat hung in the air as she strode back to her immaculate, regulation-compliant house. I clenched my fists. She was right. It wasn't over. Not even close. The first fine arrived before my water had even finished draining from the pipes. A crisp, cream-colored envelope, hand-delivered to my mailbox, containing a $200 penalty for unauthorized utility disruption. The notice included a warning. Additional fines of $50 per day will accrue until compliance is verified by the HOA board. I crumpled the paper, my pulse thrumming in my temples. This wasn't about pipes or bylaws. This was a power play. Margaret Whitmore had drawn a line in the sand, and I'd unwittingly crossed it. The plumber, still packing his tools, whistled low under his breath. They really stick it to you here, huh? I didn't answer. I was too busy calculating how far this could spiral. Silver Oaks' HOA meetings were held the first Tuesday of every month in a sterile community room that smelled of lemon disinfectant and stale coffee. I arrived early, gripping a folder of printed bylaws, and chose a seat near the front. The room filled slowly, mostly retirees with too much time and not enough mercy, murmuring about property values and those people who didn't follow the rules. Margaret swept in last, her navy blazer buttoned tight, a gavel tucked under her arm like a scepter. She didn't glance my way, but the set of her shoulders told me she knew I was there. When my name was called, during the resident concerns portion, I stood. "I'd like to address the fine I received today," I said, keeping my voice level. I had an emergency plumbing issue. Shutting off the water wasn't optional. It was necessary. Margaret steepled her fingers. "Rules exist for a reason, Mr. Carter. If we make exceptions for one, we have to make them for all." A grey-haired man in the front row nodded sagely. This wasn't an exception, I countered. It was common sense. Unless the HOA is offering 24/7 emergency approval, Margaret's lips thinned. Submit a request like everyone else, and wait 3 days for a burst pipe to destroy my kitchen. The room rustled. A woman in the back muttered, "He's got a point." Margaret's gaze snapped to her, then back to me. "This isn't a debate. Pay the fine or we'll escalate to a lien." The gavel cracked down before I could respond. I lingered after the meeting, watching Margaret pack her files with military precision. She knew I was there. She wanted me to stew. Then a tap on my shoulder. A man in his late 30s, with tired eyes and a faded NASA t-shirt, extended his hand. "Javier Garcia. You're the guy she called the cops on, right?" I shook it. "Unfortunately." Javier smirked. "She fined us last month because our toddler's plastic slide was an unapproved structure." He lowered his voice. "You're not the only one she's got it out for." An older man sidled up. Hank, from 2 streets over. "She threatened to report me to the city for the blight because I left my recycling bin out on our wise." Pass pickup. Maria Garcia joined us, bouncing a baby on her hip. She's a bully, but no one stands up to her. I glanced at Margaret, now whispering with her cronies by the door. Maybe it's time someone did. That night, I pored over the HOA's bylaws, highlighter in hand. Buried in the legalese, I found it. Article 14, Section 3. Homeowners may petition for a special vote to remove a board member with a 2-3 majority. I grinned, then another discovery. A line item in last year's budget. $3,200 for board training. Retreat. The receipt, when I dug deeper, showed a weekend at a luxury spa, signed by Monsieur Whitmore. My phone buzzed. A text from Javier. "Found more people. Meet tomorrow." I typed back. "Bring everyone." Margaret wanted a war? Good. Now she had an army to fight. The Garcias' living room smelled of strong coffee and simmering rebellion. 12 of us, homeowners from across Silver Oaks, crowded around their coffee table, balancing laptops and stacks of HOA documents. Javier had taped a handwritten sign. To the wall. Operation Whitmore exit. Maria passed out printed spreadsheets. This is just from last year. Over $15,000 in administrative expenses. With no receipts, Hank squinted at the numbers. That's our dues paying for her pedicures. I slid my own discovery into the center of the table. Emails between Margaret and the landscaping company, showing she'd approved double billing for services never rendered. Kickbacks, I said. Plain and simple. The room buzzed with quiet fury. Javier cracked his knuckles. So how do we nail her? The special meeting notice went up the next morning. Bright yellow paper stark against the HOA's usual cream-colored memos. Petition to review board conduct. Emergency vote. Margaret had tried to block it, but the bylaws were clear. With 20% of homeowners' signatures, she had no choice. She cornered me at the mailboxes. Her Chanel perfume cloying in the afternoon. Heat. This is harassment, she hissed. I smiled. No, Margaret, this is accountability. The community centre hummed with unheard of energy on voting night. Every chair was filled. with neighbours lining the walls. Even old Mr. Peterson, who hadn't left his house since his wife passed. Margaret sat stiff-backed at the head table, her usual gavel nowhere in sight. I stood to present first. 3 things, I said, projecting my voice as Javier clicked through slides. 1. Financial malfeasance. Receipts flashed on screen. Spa days. Steak dinners. Duplicate vendor payments. The crowd murmured. 2. Selective enforcement. Photos appeared of pristine lawns belonging to board members with obvious violations. Oversized sheds. Unapproved paint colours. Margaret's own flagstone. Walkway. Violating the no hardscaping rule. 3. I paused, letting the room lean in. The bylaws state board members must act in the community's best interest. Not their own. Margaret shot up, face mottled. These are baseless. Motion to remove Margaret Whitmore as HOA president. Hank boomed from the front row. The second came instantly from Mrs. Lowell in the back. The vote was called. Hands rose in waves. Not just our allies, but former fence-sitters too. When the count hit 2/3, a collective breath released. Margaret's chair screeched as she stood. "You'll regret this," she spat, gathering her things with trembling hands. Javier grinned. "Doubt it. We celebrated at the Garcias that night. Kids splashing in their now fully approved kiddie pool. Maria handed me a beer. What now?" I looked across the street at Margaret's dark, silent house. Now we wait, because people like Margaret Whitmore never go quietly. And sure enough, at 11:37 p.m., my phone lit up with a photo from Javier, a freshly posted notice on his door. Violation unpermitted. Basketball hoop. Removal required. I texted back, game on. The basketball hoop violation was just the beginning. By dawn, 6 more notices appeared on our allies' doors. Absurd citations for excessive garden gnomes. Hank had 2. Non-regulation mailbox numbers. The Garcias font was slightly too bold, and my personal favorite, unauthorized use of patio stones. Mrs. Lowell's welcome mat. Margaret wasn't conceding. She was declaring war. Javier's text came at 6:17 a.m. "She's purging the rulebook. Meet at my place in 30. The Garcias' kitchen had become our war room. Maria spread printed bylaws across the counter like a general surveying battle maps. She's exploiting Article 22. The board may amend enforcement policies without member vote during transitional periods. Hank snorted. Transitional periods? She got fired. I scrolled through the HOA's online portal, where Margaret had quietly uploaded 17 new clarifications overnight. Each one turned mundane details into violations. She's weaponizing the fine print. Javier slammed his coffee down. So we fight fire with fire. At noon, we struck back, with cameras. Every sided homeowner set up tripods facing their violations, live streaming to a new YouTube channel, Silver Oaks Justice. Mrs. Lowell even pinned a notice to her mat. "This $5 rug could cost me $500. Watch how your HOA dues get spent." By 3 p.m., the video had 2,000 views. By dinner, local news vans idled at the community entrance. Margaret's response was swift. A cease and desist letter arrived at my door, threatening defamation lawsuits. I framed it and added it to the live stream. The final blow came from an unexpected ally. The landscaping company. A man in a green polo rang my bell at sunset. "Name's Carl. Saw your videos." He handed me a flash drive. Security footage from last summer. Whitmore told us to bill for tree trimming that never happened. The video showed Margaret accepting an envelope of cash from the company owner. Javier whooped when we played it. That's not just corruption. That's embezzlement. We called an emergency board meeting. The room was packed, cameras rolling, when I dropped the flash drive onto the table in front of Margaret. Her face drained of color as the video played on the projector. The new board president, a soft-spoken librarian named Evelyn, spoke first. "Margaret, you will resign immediately, or we will refer this to the DA." A beat of silence. Then, from the back, Hank yelled what we all thought, "Pack your shit, Whitmore." Laughter erupted. Even the cops at the door smirked. Margaret stood slowly, clutching her purse like a life preserver. For the first time, the woman who'd ruled Silver Oaks with an iron fist looked small. "You'll regret this," she whispered, but as she shuffled out, no one listened. Her house sold within a week. We threw a block party the day the moving van left. Javier grilled burgers. Kids played basketball in the street. And someone, maybe Hank, nailed a cheeky sign to the for sale post. HOA approval required for viewing. As twilight fell, I turned off my water main just because I could. No letter came.